this date. There you are, you're running for your life. You're a shooting star, and all the years no one knows just how hard you worked, but now it shows. In one shining moment, it's all on the line. One shining moment, they're frozen in
Oh, one shining moment it is indeed. Welcome back into The Future is Female. Tonight we're going to be celebrating our one shining moments. Nicole, good to be back with you this week.
It's good to be back with you as well. And indeed, there were many shining moments from this year's tournament. And I'm really sad that we are no more college basketball.
I know.
That's what's really upsetting.
God, that's what happens with every major like national championship and stuff is just it's just the fact that it stops. Like it's over after that for several months. But God, it feels like every single year the college basketball season comes even faster than the last. Like it I can't even believe it. Another CBB season for men and women in the books. The NBA season is ending this week.
Also weird.
What? How did 82 games go by that quickly?
Yeah, no kidding.
We're going to spend, a lot of today reacting to the women's tournament and the men's tournament. We'll spend some time discussing, some of our biggest upsets, some of our, biggest predictions that truly did not come through. The best games, the saddest moments. We're going to have our one shining moment today on this show. So we've got a lot to rip into today, obviously. Nicole, initial first reactions of the NCAA tournament?
I can't believe we didn't have a buzzer beater.
We didn't.
Well, actually, no, that's a lie. NC State. It wasn't to win the game, it was to tie the game. But still, I cannot believe we had a game ending, I should say, buzzer beater. It's always good. I mean, obviously the first weekend is the best. No doubt, not even close. And that's just all the games that are on, the upset probability is a lot higher. And then as you go further on, the better teams separate themselves a lot more, and it becomes a lot more obvious who the Final Four are going to be.
Yeah.
But still, that first weekend you and I were talking about was exhausting.
Oh my God, my eyes hurt, especially because it's men and women every day, every hour.
Well, and it wasn't. It was Thursday, Friday, for the men. Saturday, Sunday for that second round, and then Saturday, Sunday was that first round for the women, and Monday, Tuesday. So it was the entire. That's what. Let's do math here. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
That's 6 straight days.
Yeah, that's 6 straight days of basketball on for us in the West Coast. Pretty much all day.
Yeah, pretty much every second of the day
for everyone too. But not from the minute you wake up on the East Coast. This is if you wake up at 8:30, there was a game on in a half hour.
Yeah.
Or in the women's case, some of them had already started.
Yeah. It's so fun. I think, especially this year, having March Madness back to normal for the first time since 2019.
Weird.
Really weird. Essentially the entire span of our college careers.
Oh, don't put it like that.
That's weird to think about. That's really weird to think about. It made me appreciate it so much more, though, to see it and have it back. I mean, I guess we'll rip right into it. The NCAA Women's Tournament, Dawn Staley in South Carolina essentially dominate and rip apart Paige Beckers, Gina Auriemma, and the UConn Huskies. They win 64-49 for Dawn Staley's second national title. She is 2-0 in the national championship game. Gina Auriemma is now 11-1 in the national championship game. Nicole, initial thoughts on this ballgame?
I mean, they just dominated from the get-go. The first TV timeout, Gino Auriemma genuinely looked shocked. He was like, whoa, wait. I did not.
Yeah, the score
I know this team is good, but I did not expect it like this. It was 20-8 at one point, I remember.
It was, I think it was 20. I think when I saw it, the biggest gap in that first quarter was 22-8 during one of the media timeouts.
It was, we'll get into the rebounds, but oh my gosh. And that was the concern with UConn, is they were going to get out-rebounded. But I don't think anyone thought it was going to be like this. Just everything UConn put up, nothing fell, and South Carolina just the rebound. Oh my gosh, that's really the story of the game. That and senior Destiny Henderson. She led the Gamecocks with 26 points. Those are the stories of the game, truly.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. They were talking about it on the broadcast. Would you have believed that Aaliyah Boston only scored 11 points and her team still won by 15?
Well, you wouldn't think so, and then you would go a little bit more over in the box score, and you'd see 16 rebounds. she had more rebounds than points, and she had the same amount of defensive rebound as points.
Yeah.
Nuts. Absolutely nuts. And that is what Aaliyah Boston can bring it to your team. Even when she's not the top scorer or the best player, she is still contributing in other ways.
She doesn't need to be, right?
Yeah, no,
she doesn't need to be. And there's a reason why Boston swept. She swept every major national award. She went 5-0 in national awards, like Naismith, John R. Wooden, AP Player of the Year. She won everything. She won every single one. Shout out Boston for that, by the way. Destiny Henderson, obviously she led the Gamecocks with 26 points. She declared for the WNBA draft next week as well. So South Carolina out-rebounds UConn 49-24.
Nuts. Just
Since the modern era, when they started really tracking things like that, from what I understood, it was in like 1999. That's like the largest rebounding gap. 1999 was when Carolyn Peck won the national title.
Oh my gosh.
So Paige Beckers on the other side. Paige Beckers leads UConn with 14 points. She played in front of her hometown crowd in Minnesota. Nicole, your thoughts on Beckers' performance?
I mean, South Carolina shut her down. They were on top of her. They told UConn, beat us with someone else. We dare you to. Yeah. And this is a UConn team we talked about at the beginning of the year. Was like, they need to find their identity without Paige Beckers. And then we get to the tournament, and it's like, wow, they found their identity without Paige Beckers. And South Carolina's like, yeah, forget everything you learned. Because they made them, and Paige still led with 14 points. That's just how good South Carolina was on defense. And as you'll get to, how bad some of the shots were.
Oh, Lord.
Because, again, like I said, nothing fell for UConn. Literally nothing. And they didn't rebound most of their shots.
Yeah.
Most of their shots that didn't fall, I'd say 98% of their shots that didn't fall found their way into South Carolina. Mostly Aaliyah Boston's hands.
Yeah, Aaliyah Boston.
But, I mean, Paige, sorry, I danced around the question. Paige still did great. She still did her job. I just give a lot more credit to South Carolina's defense.
Yeah. Yeah, every point that Becker scored, she had to earn. And you mentioned the poor shooting performances. UConn shot just 4 of 16 from the three-point line. South Carolina shot just 3 of 16 from the three-point line. I mean, it was old-fashioned basketball. In the modern era where the three-point line dominates the sport, the three-point line did anything but dominate this national title game, Nicole.
Yeah, and I was checking on the men's, too, because... yeah, it's kind of a similar story. We get to the end of the tournament, and everyone's like, the game... I mean, we've had great games, don't get me wrong. But the story after most of these title games is always the shooting. The shooting was off, a lot of missed shots. I mean, they're tired. Like, this is the last game of the season. The mental exhaustion is there. The physical exhaustion is there. And especially as we'll talk about with North Carolina later. But, like... yeah, the shooting's bad because they're tired. They are so exhausted.
Yeah.
I don't really think that's a mark on any player. And now some just completely outperform and, like Destiny Henderson did. But, yeah, the shooting is usually not a forte of the national championship. We just all kind of forget that because the game was so good.
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah, I think oftentimes we also forget that these kids are students. Missing time in school, probably taking some sorts of exams on their off day between the national semifinal and the national championship.
Oh, there is no way in heck I would be doing any homework the day between. But you're right, some of them probably do.
Some of them might have to. Some of them might have to. If you're a Stanford Cardinal athlete and you are a pre-med student, some of those girls are, you're probably doing some sort of homework. Or if you are like Anna Wilson in a master's program at Stanford, you're probably doing something the day before the national semifinal game. It's that's just the nature of the university that you are at, right? Like, I think a lot of people forget just how exhausting that 3-week span is for someone like Paige Beckers or Leah Boston or Haley Jones. That 3-week span is absolutely exhausting. For us, that 3-week span included like spring break, maybe some midterms, and like just watching basketball whenever we wanted. It definitely didn't include being a part of what was the most watched national title game since 2004.
Whew. Yeah.
Speaking of the national title game and it being watched by many eyes, Nicole, what were your thoughts on seeing Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird run the entire broadcast?
Oh man, I wish I watched their broadcast. I only saw the clips of it on Twitter, but like, man, I'm so glad we're doing stuff like this. I hope that, and I feel like they've done something similar before in the past, but not to this extent. I feel like the Eli Peyton Manning thing has kind of opened new doors for ESPN to try this stuff out, which is really cool because there were a lot of cool moments that I saw. And again, I wish I watched, it was the broadcast I watched. Yeah, they were great. They were great.
It was so unbelievably entertaining. I watched the entire thing, basically. They had on Megan Rapinoe, LeBron James. They had, I think, did they have on Tara Vanderveer as well? They had on one coach, too, that I'm blanking on right now. But they had on everyone. They, my favorite moment from the broadcast side, at least, was when there was a meme that went viral on Twitter of the old man from Up.
Oh, yeah.
And Gino Auriemma. And they pretended that the old man from Up was Gino Auriemma and that Gino was calling into the show mid-game, like at halftime. And they basically went back and forth with Gino discussing how the game was going. And they just pulled clips from his press conference the day before. It was hysterical.
And I think Brie Lewerke was the one who, she works at Spotify and she's freelance photographer for Sports Illustrated. Yeah, this is what inspired it. Lewerke on the March 26th. You can't tell me that Gino Auriemma doesn't resemble the old man from Up. By the way, that man's name is Carl. Show some respect. But that was a tweet that inspired that moment. So shout out Brie Lewerke as well, because that was just, I forgot about that. That was amazing.
It was hysterical. That was probably my favorite moment from the entire broadcast. Speaking of favorite moments, Nicole, we're going to rip into favorite stories from the tournament.
Ooh.
Starting off, best game.
This one feels like low-hanging fruit, but also I can't help it. UConn NC State was so much fun. Double overtime, which was the first time a women's tournament game had gone into double overtime. I forget if it was as a whole or just in the Elite Eight. But like I said earlier, those shots by NC State, and one of the greatest passes I've ever seen from the top of the key to the corner.
How she didn't step out of bounds or step on the three-point line, I don't know.
Incredible. And I think that was just to get it to the first overtime. Again, I can't remember exactly, but oh my God, that game was so much fun. That was the best game of the tournament on either side for me. What was yours, Gabby?
I honestly, I want to agree with you, but I also wanted to mix it up a little bit. I was rooting for Stanford throughout the tournament. I wanted Stanford to win it all. My team in my bracket was called the Stanford Stans because we stan the Cardinal. It was Stanford versus UConn in the Final Four game because of the history that was on the line there between the two coaches and between the star players. Like Paige Beckers and Haley Jones literally went one-on-one against each other. Every single possession, they were going up against each other. So that right there, that was the reason why that was my favorite game of the tournament. And it ended up being a pretty close game. It was 58 to 63 by the end. And just because every time UConn punched, Stanford punched back. Every time Auriemma punched, Vanderveer punched back. So not only was it like this battle, on court of athletes and what will more than likely be a handful of WNBA superstars, it was also a punch back of like the two most dominant women's college basketball coaches of all time, and arguably the two most dominant college basketball coaches of all time, period. So that's why that one was my favorite game of the tournament. That was the best game for me. Biggest surprise.
For me, it was Creighton. And we have sort of similar thoughts on this, but yeah, I mean, they out-rebounded a very good rebounding team in Colorado in the first round, and then go into Iowa City, sold-out crowd, and I mean, the game was close, but Creighton kind of had control. Iowa kept fighting back, but Creighton was kind of in the driver's seat for that game. It was just, and then they were, I'm going to be honest with you, then they beat Iowa State, which I, again, was not expecting either. I can't call them the Cinderella because for me that's South Dakota, but yeah, and then you run into South Carolina, you run into Goliath, and they were David, and there's not much more you can do, but it shocked me that they would first beat Colorado and out-rebounded them, and then went into Iowa City and controlled the game. Yeah, they controlled the game in an atmosphere that was sold out. Caitlin Clark was expected to be in the Final Four this year. At least I expected her to be in the national title game, so RIP to that bracket. There's a reason why I finished dead last, people. Didn't exactly predict that one. Yeah, I had Creighton as well. Creighton was the biggest surprise of the tournament. Once again, probably the low-hanging fruit, but rightfully so. Nicole, can you do me a favor? Can you find the name of the gal who went to school at Iowa and then transferred to Creighton? Yeah, I got you.
And then beat them in the round of 32. That was another one, biggest surprise on planet Earth.
Was it Lauren Jensen?
That sounds right. Yes.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Yeah, Lauren Jensen returning to Iowa to the same coach that she transferred away from a season earlier. Wow. What a shocking story that was, especially because I think you mentioned it. They then went on to play Iowa State. They also defeated Colorado. I don't even think I had them defeating Colorado.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I watched Colorado play the NCAA tournament. I was like, oh no, there's no way. Colorado will make it to the Sweet 16. No.
Creighton out-rebounded them and beat them by 10. And again, a game they controlled.
On the road.
On the road, yeah.
Biggest surprise? Pretty easy one, folks. Pretty undisputable there. Biggest letdown, Nicole?
It's Iowa. I mean, you said it. Had them in the Natty. I did. I had my bias with Michigan, but otherwise probably would have had them in the Natty too.
Yeah.
And not only that, to win by 40 against Illinois State, and then all credit to Creighton. We just sat here and gave Creighton all the credit, but this was a team that had a similar problem to UConn and Paige Beckers, where if Caitlin Clark wasn't pulling up from midcourt, you were in trouble. That's an exaggeration, but not by a long shot. And again, Caitlin Clark was not their leading scorer. Their leading scorer had 27 points in this game for Iowa. So no small feat. But yeah, they had a very similar problem where they just kind of didn't know what to do if Caitlin Clark wasn't getting the ball once every other possession.
They relied just like we said, UConn needed to figure out who they were without Paige Beckers. Iowa never figured out who they were without Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
I would also have Iowa as the biggest letdown, but I mixed it up a little bit and I actually went with Baylor.
That's a good one too.
Yeah, Baylor was a number 2 seed and they got knocked out by 10-seeded South Dakota in the round of 32.
Yeah.
Just not good basketball. You're a 2 seed. They had just also lost Kim Mulkey, obviously, to LSU. But God, you should not be getting knocked out by South Dakota.
And it was 61-47 too.
Yeah.
They were down 16-4 after the first quarter.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Iowa and Baylor, both 2 seeds that got knocked out far too soon in this tournament. So my question to you, do you think Iowa will ever make it to a national championship game.
Man, if they don't with Caitlin Clark, they're never going to. That's an exaggeration again, but I don't know. Because I think on the women's side of things has a similar problem with the men's side of things when it comes to the Big Ten. Is they get to the tournament and it's just bigger play and it's a different sort of play. The officiating is noticeably different. Aside from a few officials there, it's a lot to adjust to. So I'm giving them some credit there, but also, like, it's similar problems. They get to the tournament and kind of disappoint. That's kind of what the Big Ten does. And I think it's a problem on both sides. And I think it's similar on both sides in that the officiating is different. The play is different. The play is faster.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, actually. Wow. As I'm saying it, the play is faster.
Yeah.
Big Ten, the play is slow. You're getting in the paint. You are wearing everyone down. You're using the clock.
Yeah.
They don't do that in the SEC. They don't do that in the Pac-12. And this goes for both sides. Pac-12 is give and take, but I do think that is the women's and men's sides has a very similar problem for the Big Ten when it gets to the tournament, and I think Iowa faces that similar problem. And I don't know. I'm gonna say no. Not with Caitlin Clark. I'm gonna keep it to a time frame here. Well, Caitlin Clark is there. Will they get to a title? No.
Yeah, it's almost like you mentioned it with how the Big Ten plays. I mean, you spent an entire year closely watching Michigan play, and Naz Hillman. Michigan made it, I think, all the way to the Elite Eight. Correct?
Oh yeah, and they played well against Louisville, but again, Louisville played faster. They played a little bigger. And I don't know if it's just Big Ten, like the stepping up, because you always say, oh, the Big Ten, they beat up on each other, so they should get to the tournament and be fine. No, they actually get to the tournament and are kind of worn down. And they played well against Louisville, but every time they caught up, they were playing catch up, and every time they caught up, Louisville just got ahead.
Right.
And again, I just think it's very similar themes.
Yeah, it definitely is. I know when I look at Iowa's roster, it literally just feels too reliant on Caitlin Clark. Like, they're being so spoiled by her dominance in the regular season. She's essentially the second coming of Sabrina Ionescu in, like, a bigger body that defends a lot better than Ionescu ever did. Like, she's a better version of Sabrina. And you're getting knocked out in the round of 32 in year number 2 with her. She's draft eligible next year. She could take off next year. She could also stay for another 3 seasons. I think she'll go somewhere in the middle. She'll probably stay for her senior year. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if Iowa can actually punch the ticket.
Actually, before we move on, though, because we've talked about, 3 teams now who rely too much on their best player. Why doesn't South Carolina have that problem with Aaliyah Boston? I think the answer is obvious, and we both know the answer, but let's just verbalize it.
I think the answer is they have the best coach in college basketball right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, they have Dawn Staley. Staley knows how to coach championship level basketball, and it didn't come overnight. Like, she didn't just get hired at South Carolina and then all of a sudden they were national champions. She's been working her way up the ladder in the college basketball world for like 20 some odd years. People forget that all the time. But yeah, I think it's just better coaching.
Let's flip that real quick, because Gino Auriemma also knows how to coach title teams.
That's true.
Why does he have this problem with Paige Beckers? And then the UConn team. Again, they were just in the title.
Yeah.
But given our conversations around the whole season.
That's true. Maybe, I don't know. I wonder if it's because Gino Auriemma was so used to being at the top for so long that everybody else has caught up to him with, phenomenal coaching like Dawn Staley, with phenomenal players like Tara Vanderveer and Haley Jones. Because Stanford doesn't have that issue. And Tara's coached how many national championship teams? 3 of them, I think. But I think the reason why Gino might have been struggling is because he hasn't adjusted enough. It's hard to get on top. It's harder to stay on top, right? I think it's the hardest thing ever to stay on top. And I think Gino all of a sudden is realizing how difficult it is to stay on top when everybody else is catching up to you. I think it's because he hasn't adjusted enough.
I was going to say adaptation as well.
Yeah, adaptation in the sport is incredibly important on court, but it's also important off court. Because of the adaptations of NIL and the growth of player empowerment in Division I college basketball, Paige Beckers has now become the first NCAA women's basketball player to hit 1 million followers on Instagram, Nicole.
Woo! It's pretty good.
Shout out
Getting the money.
Yeah. Shout out to Susan Wong. Susan got a DM from Paige for photos, so hopefully we'll be seeing some of Susan Wong, Blaze Radio social media director. Hopefully you'll be seeing some of her photos pop up on Paige's Instagram account or Twitter account or something.
Paige better tag her.
Susan told me that she asked Paige to just tag her
okay.
in the photos, because I think Paige emailed her back just asking, do you need anything else? And all Susan asked for was just, please tag me if you post the photos online. So yeah, moving away from a couple of programs, any final thoughts before we move on from NCAA women's basketball?
I'm sad it's over.
I am too. It's been a fun 6 months of talking about it. It's been a really fun 6 months. Just means we'll have to continue it next year in some ways, right? But moving away from programs that are on top with superstar athletes that will dominate the WNBA one day to a program that we know is about to be under some major construction, ASU women's basketball. Former Sun Devil guard Taya Hansen announced today on Instagram that she's transferring to Oregon for her final year of NCAA eligibility. Nicole, your reaction when you saw this?
Ow.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, but ow. But you were telling me what makes it more interesting is that Oregon's had, was it 6 players transfer away? Or
Yeah.
they're in the portal?
So they have 4, I'm pretty sure, that are in the portal and 2 that are going to the WNBA draft.
Okay, so they're losing 6 players. I mean, Oregon's a great program. I get it. Maybe she wanted to stay on the West Coast. But, yeah, in conference, to a conference foe, we will, I mean, at the very least get to see Hansen in Tempe one more time, which is nice. But that's a nice thing about it. I don't fault anyone for transferring anywhere. The only case is Rivals, where I just kind of throw a question mark that's strange. But, again, you transfer where it's the best fit for you.
Yeah.
But given 4 players in the transfer portal, same coach, you kind of wonder what's going on there. Again, I'm happy to see her in Tempe one more time, but
yeah.
Ow. It kind of hurts, but I hope she's happy. Good for her.
Yeah, they lost their entire sophomore class. Their entire sophomore class entered the transfer portal. Meaning those were the kids that committed to Oregon Sabrina Ionescu's senior year.
Well, that's why they committed.
Yeah, that's exactly why they committed. So they lost their only true freshman last year. She sat on the bench and didn't play much. I'm assuming, from what I read up at least, the reason she's transferring is just because she wants more playing time. At least that's kind of what's being led on. But the fact that every single sophomore is leaving, I don't want to say it's suspicious per se, but a lot of those sophomores may have entered that program thinking we're going to be national championship contenders, because that's what they are in 2020. And then once again, the fault lines in that program, it may have been unveiled during 2020 that they were relying too much on Sabrina Ionescu, but we never got that answer, of course, because there was no NCAA tournament. But yeah, I didn't.
And Oregon did lose in the first round to Belmont.
Yeah.
This year, so it's just something to keep an eye on. Something, not Hansen per se, but just the team of what's going on there?
Yeah. I really don't think you can fault Hansen for wanting to transfer.
Absolutely not.
New coach, new system. She doesn't want to start from square one her 5th year. She already went through so much and played decently well, all things considered, that her sophomore year, she should have been in the NCAA tournament. They would have made it. They would have been like a 7 seed or an 8 seed, but they definitely would have made it. That got axed. Junior year, the team was just not very good. They just didn't make the tournament. They struggled with COVID. You can make up any excuse in the book, but they just weren't good enough to be in the NCAA tournament. And then her senior year rolls around. You hope that the team can find their stride. The team beats U of A at home. They defeat Oregon at home. They defeat Oregon State. They go on this little winning streak mid-season. You think, oh, they're going to find their stride. And then they go and lose the last 6 games of the year. And all of a sudden, she's looking around and she's like, my coach just retired. I've got 3 teammates that are talking about transferring. Caitlin Levings of ASU women's basketball also transferred. So I can't blame her. I can't blame her at all for doing what she's doing. I hope she does get back to the NCAA tournament. I hope she has a Remy Martin kind of story. Moving along from women's basketball over to men's NCAA tournament. Nicole, break it down for us.
It was a fun one. It was typical men's fashion. The first, and I don't mean this in a condescending way. It's just the first weekend is the best weekend. But we knew that. But the Final Four, at least one of the games did not disappoint. But who came out on top? The Kansas Jayhawks. They came back from a 16-point deficit to beat North Carolina 72-69. And former Sun Devil Remy Martin put up 14 points, 3 rebounds for the Jayhawks. It was a great game. I mean, it was a game where North Carolina led at the half by 15. And it went back and forth because the first 5 minutes happened. It was like, oh, Kansas is going to blow them away. And then the next 15 minutes happened, and you're like, oh, my God, North Carolina's going to win. Oh, my God, they're going to do it. And then Kansas just slowly but surely brought him back. And you can credit it to Bill Self's halftime speech. You can credit it to North Carolina was exhausted, like completely exhausted all their options just to get up 15 and into the half. It can, whatever you want. Kansas still the largest deficit in NCAA title history with 16 points. As far as Remy Martin goes, Sun Devil fans are pretty split as far as I've seen on whether they're happy for Remy or not. I've also seen a lot of just indifference of I don't care. I've seen a lot, I would have rather he not win, but I'm happy for him, and a lot of just, no, he left, screw him. Or, obviously the complete opposite of that, happy for the guy, he gave everything to this program for 4 years.
Yeah.
Were you rooting for Remy Martin?
I don't know if I was rooting, I wasn't rooting against him. I didn't really want to see him fail. But because North Carolina was the 8 seed, I kind of wanted to see the quote-unquote, as much as North Carolina can be in this category, the Cinderella story kind of win out. I wasn't rooting against him. I will say that. I think he gave everything he could to this program. Once again, much like Taya Hansen, I cannot fault him for leaving and wanting to go chase a ring. I cannot fault him for doing that. And he accomplished it. And in terms of players in NCAA college basketball that earned a national title, I would say Remy Martin is on the short list of players that genuinely earned a national title. Nicole, what about you? Were you rooting for him?
Kind of in the same boat. Wasn't rooting against him. I also wanted North Carolina to win, but I was, very okay with whoever won.
Yeah.
I was very happy North Carolina beat Duke, so I didn't have to go into this oh my God, Kansas, please do the thing. Please retire Coach K. Didn't have to worry about that. North Carolina took care of that. But I was mostly rooting for a good game, and I never wished ill will towards Remy Martin, so I was kind of indifferent, and then after it was yeah, I'm happy for him. What am I going to do? Be cynical? What's that going to accomplish? And if you are cynical, I get it. I get why, but yeah, good for him.
It wasn't even like he left the program early, per se. He used an extra year of eligibility he got because he played in the middle of a pandemic, and he still stayed all 4 years at ASU. Yeah. His senior year was the COVID year, which blew. Yeah. Really blew. So yeah, super fun to see a former Sun Devil. I think that's as close as Arizona State's going to get for quite a while to the national title game.
Yeah.
So,
we'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. We'll take it. We'll be that other Adidas school that dude once went to. Favorite stories, just like we did for the women. Nicole, best game of the tournament?
We have a similar one we'll talk about, so I'll go with the latter first. St. Peter's versus Kentucky was such a fun game. And the Cinderella story of it all, yes, but the fact that this game went into overtime, and once Kentucky forced overtime, I think everyone was like, okay. Overtime, typically the better team wins.
Right.
And St. Peter's came out hot. I mean, it was 14-8 final from overtime for St. Peter's, and it's even better when the Cinderella underdog story wins.
Right.
So for me, that was the best game, aside from the one you and I will share and talk about in a minute.
Yeah, the latter of the ones I had was Villanova versus Houston in the Elite Eight. I think that game was super underrated, but really, really good. I think credit to Jay Wright for getting Nova back to the Final Four once again. Villanova was completely hobbled by the time they got to the Final Four. They had one player tear his Achilles tendon.
Yeah, ow.
During that game, and they still found a way to win. And they won, like, going away. That was the ladder.
That was a rock fight.
Yeah.
Is the team going to score 50 in this game?
Literally.
Which Nova did, 50 exactly. But yeah, it was a rock fight. The one we share, though, and I think the one everyone's thinking of, man, it lived up to the hype. Duke UNC Final Four. First time meeting in the tournament, unless you count the NIT back in, like, the 70s or 80s. Yeah, I mean, it just lived up to the hype. I don't even know what more there is to say. I don't know what new I could add to that conversation of just, yeah, that was an incredible game.
It was just, like, beautiful tournament basketball. It's what everyone loves about March Madness. They live for games like that. It reminds me of the Gonzaga-UCLA game last year in the Final Four.
That was a great game.
Yeah. That one ended on buzzer beater, too. I think that the only thing that would have made the Duke-UNC game even better is if it had ended on a buzzer beater.
Yeah.
Even then.
It might have lived in, like, tournament... It will live in tournament history, but it might have shot up to the top of the list of tournament history if it was a buzzer beater.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you happy to see Coach K's tournament time and...
Oh, my God, yeah,
and...
Gabby. It was so relieving. I'm sorry to Coach K lovers everywhere, but his whole retirement tour, and I get it, it wasn't him single-handedly making it about himself, but I've never been a particular fan of Coach K, and to watch UNC, a team that beat him in his final game at home just to get into the tournament, just to have a spot secured, I should say, going into Selection Sunday, do it again on the biggest stage. Yeah, that was fun. That was really fun. And I was just I really didn't want to see Coach K get his swan song in the title game. That just would have been really annoying from a TV watching standpoint. I think everyone can agree. And it still was. UNC beat Duke, and there were still, like, several ESPN features on Coach K's retirement, which I get. They had those in the wings waiting.
Yeah.
But can we give UNC their flowers for, like, 24 hours, guys?
Would have been too damn easy.
Yeah.
The storyline cycle was already moving on to Remy Martin at Kansas, winning a national title. Biggest surprise of the tournament?
For me, it was Miami. This was a team that, I mean, close one with USC, and then just not dominate, but controlled Auburn, the number 2 seed, and what was a lot of people's title favorite, I'd say, or at least a Final Four favorite. I did not expect that. I didn't expect much from this Miami team, I'll be honest. I didn't think anyone was going to run them over. I didn't think they'd make, the Elite Eight? and lead Kansas at halftime? Granted by, 6, but,
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not expect that from Miami.
I went with the low-hanging fruit.
The Cinderella.
Oh, yeah. St. Peter's out of New Jersey. The peacock is my favorite animal. St. Peter's. Elite 8 run, the 15 seed. You know, they beat Kentucky. Who else did they have to beat? They beat several teams on their march.
Blue Bloods. Legit,
yeah, they beat several Blue Bloods.
There was a conversation of if they made the Final Four, and even then, if they made the national title, they would have beaten just about every line of Blue Bloods you can throw their way. They beat Kentucky. They beat Murray State, which isn't a blue blood, but a very good team. They beat Purdue.
Yeah.
And then they would have had to beat North Carolina and Duke and potentially Kansas. I mean, just even that line of thinking is crazy. But, they beat Kentucky and Purdue.
Mother of God.
That's really good.
Even if they had just beaten Kentucky, I probably still would have said They were the biggest surprise of the tournament. And I'm going to say credit to the 3 players that are transferring and the coach who's going to chase his bag now at
They're all chasing
Seton
their
Hall.
bag.
I don't blame them.
As they should.
Dude, chase your bag. So, biggest surprise. What about biggest letdown?
Kentucky. I'm going to go on the flip side of that. And this is from a completely unbiased standpoint. I don't care that much for Coach Cal in Kentucky. They're fine. I don't like, if Coach Cal were to have a retirement tour, I'm not wishing for him to lose. I would prefer he not win the tournament in his final year, but in a similar way. But yeah, I'm very indifferent towards Kentucky, and this was just seeing the visceral reaction from Kentucky fans of serious conversations about firing Coach Cal. And to some of their credit, Coach Cal hasn't done much with many great Kentucky teams in the past. It's been a while since they've gotten to the Final Four. And it probably feels even longer now with just 2020 as a whole.
Right.
But, yeah, and to St. Peter's, I'll do credit to St. Peter's. In overtime, when you're a team that, man, and given their look ahead, they would have beaten North Carolina. I think they would have beaten North Carolina. I don't think they would have beaten Duke. I think they would have beaten North Carolina. Like, it was laid out for them. But all the credit to St. Peter's. But they were a letdown.
Shout out to the Peacocks. Making the Wildcats the biggest letdown of the tournament. For me, it's my UCLA Bruins getting upset in the Sweet 16. They got beat by North Carolina. This team was expected to make it to the Final Four, and for some weird reason, CBS Sports decided to post the #1 team in the nation for next year already. They called it the Never Too Early rankings. They already have UCLA ranked #1 in the country. I'm going to put a halt to that and say, can we at least let Johnny Juzang and Jaime Jaquez Jr. declare for the NBA draft? Yeah, it's UCLA getting out in the Sweet 16. This team was expected to be a Final Four team. Arizona State rushed the court when we beat them in February. They were the #3 team in the country at the time, and rightfully so. They have multiple guys that are probably going to be lottery picks, first-round picks. You should not be getting knocked out by an 8 seed. Even though it was North Carolina, and even though they did make the national championship game, you still should not be getting knocked out by an 8 seed.
North Carolina is such a fake 8 seed, but they should have been a 5 seed. But yeah, I mean, and they were just actually it was Akron that had a close game. They controlled St. Mary's, but they just didn't look good down the stretch. Of the whole season, they just didn't look that good. You could pick out the holes in that team pretty easily. And obviously North Carolina did that, and all the credit to Hubert Davis, who I think is just a fantastic coach, and I love him already. But yeah, and especially given your affiliation, I understand.
Yeah, there were such high expectations for this team coming into this year. The Sweet 16, that's not horrible for most programs, but for a program where Mick Cronin is saying they're back in the national spotlight, they're back on top, you're not back on top, not yet. You make it back to the Final Four again, yeah, then you're back on top.
Well, I think a lot of what's hurt by that is John Wooden. Like, I think 30 years from now, if Duke, misses a tournament, it's going to be, they can't return to their glory days with Coach K. And it's like, yeah, well, that was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's very true.
I think that taints it a little bit. But, again, understandably so.
Yeah. Yeah, biggest letdowns, biggest surprises, best game. Nicole, any other storylines from the men's side?
Juwan Howard. I trust that man with my life. Got him. We talked about this. Got him to the Sweet 16 when they were not supposed to be there. I should never doubt this team going into March. Because even when they're at their lowest, and they were pretty darn low, they still make March pretty special, and I'm thankful for that. And on the women's side, too, I'm going to miss Naz Hillman. I'm going to miss Naz Hillman so much. But bright future ahead for both men's and women's program. Hang up the 00s in Chrysler in the rafters.
Oh, I think they're going to get hung.
Oh, they better.
I think they're going to get hung next year. I really, really do. Hillman's expected to be a top 5 pick.
I'm excited to see where she goes.
Yeah, she's expected to be a top 5 pick next week.
Oh my God, it's next week.
Yeah, it's on Monday. It is on Monday.
Wow, I'm so sorry. I forgot about that. We'll talk about that next week.
I figured we were kind of out of time at that point. It's already 7:47.
Also, yes. But
shifting over from college hoops to the NBA, we're in the final week of the regular season.
Somehow.
I know. The Phoenix Suns just tipped off against the Los Angeles Lakers literally 5 minutes down the street from here. But ticket prices are going to destroy my little soul, so.
Yeah.
The Lakers are in trouble. The Phoenix Suns are not. Suns are obviously top seed in the West, top seed in the league right now. The Lakers. I don't want to talk anymore about the Lakers.
Well, I'll finish the Suns bit, and then you can talk about the Lakers.
Oh.
So a win tonight for the Suns and a Spurs win versus the Nuggets, which, let me update you on that real quick. At the end of the third, it is 85-79 Spurs over the Nuggets. Would eliminate the Lakers from playoff contention and notch a franchise record 63rd win. I was listening to Burns and Gambo earlier, and they were like, which is sweeter? The former or the latter of that. And a lot of people said the former. It feels sweet to knock the Lakers out of the playoffs, even when they're not good. It hits different, I guess. I'm not a Suns fan. I'm a Suns follower and a Lakers hater. Anyways, LeBron James is out versus the Suns tonight. Still that lingering left ankle sprain. He's missing his 4th game out of the last 5. Again, like Gabby said, that game just tipped off. Lakers after a decent start. I mean, it's 12-4, 4 minutes in.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Gabby, it's your turn. The Suns are good. I think we all know that by now.
I'm probably going to be rooting for the Suns in the postseason, in all honesty. Especially because more than likely the Lakers aren't going to be there. So, the Lakers are currently sitting outside.
The Lakers stink!
Dang it!
Do you want to hear it again?
No!
The Lakers stink!
I thought it was time to bring that back. I'm so grateful I got to bring that back. I hid that from you.
You definitely. I was like, why is she hitting the micro?
I saw you look, and I was like, she's getting suspicious. I'm gonna do it quick.
I was like, why is she hitting that button? And I was like, oh no, she'll wait till it gets back to her. No, she's not waiting till it gets back to her.
Oh no, my dear Gabby. But continue.
3 years later, and nothing's changed, folks. Yeah, we're currently sitting outside the playoff picture. LeBron and AD are crumbling. They're literally and physically crumbling, as my hopes and dreams also crumble. 2020 was fun. That was the one fun part about that year, was us winning that title. With this current roster construction, no, we're not winning another one. We're not even making the playoffs. And the Lakers need to accept that. And if I were them, I probably would just shut LeBron and AD down for the rest of the season. Why risk more injury? Why risk getting even more beaten up when you're at the 11th seed right now? There's just no point. You got to explode the roster this offseason. Restructure it, because it's just not working. Moving on.
Yeah. I think they would be a 500 team battling for a 7th or 8th slot in the Western Conference, and they'd still be destined to go home in the first round. Let's just get this out of the way, please. The Lakers are a national basketball atrocity. Let's just call it what it is. They're an atrocity, and it starts from the top down. It starts from Jeannie Buss allowing Linda Rambis to have power. It goes from there and disintegrates down to Rob Pelinka, who feels that as long as you're wearing the purple and gold and you're a Laker, you'll be just fine. It sifts further down to Frank Vogel, who lost the team because they stopped listening to him a long time ago. And in the middle of all of it is the culpability on the shoulders of LeBron James. Not LeBron James the player, because LeBron James the player has balled out. LeBron James, the GM. And the reason that I say that as a pseudo de facto GM is because you could have had Ty
Are you
Lue
satisfied
as your
yet?
coach, but you caved in.
Okay, I'm done. Actually, no, one more time.
Excuse me? For what? That was like a 2-minute
The
segment.
Lakers stink!
Jesus.
Okay, now I'm done. But I do, out of that soundbite, have a serious question for you, and it is not on Le GM. But do you think Frank Vogel is out after this year, or what's the coaching situation to you?
To me, I don't think he deserves to be out, but I think he's going to get scapegoated, and I think he will get fired. I don't think that he deserves to be fired. I think he's a good NBA coach, but I think the team, being Clutch Sports, Rob Pelinka, Jeannie Buss, I think they're all just going to say that they have to do something. And a lot of times the Lakers as a team, they're not really good at looking themselves in the mirror and saying, we constructed a terrible roster. We didn't give LeBron and AD the support they needed to get through the 82-game season. We decided to bring in, shot cruncher Russell Westbrook and hobbling old man Carmelo Anthony that was out of the league 2 years ago. And we decided to say that was a championship level team. We decided to live in the past and just expect that, LeBron James is about to win a scoring title at 37 years old, not really because he wants to, but because he's had to score that much. We decided that that was enough to win a title. And I think, unfortunately, Frank Vogel is not really the one that makes the decisions about the roster. He probably has a say, but he's not the end-all be-all. He's not the one cashing the checks. The people who write the checks are the ones who decide truly who's on the team. So I think he probably will get canned, but not because it's his fault.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the Lakers. I just make fun of you when it comes to the Lakers. But it does. Actually, no, I'm going to change that, because I remember one of the first shows we had this year, our senior year. We talked about the Lakers roster and the fact that it was old. And yes, while it was guys that were good in their prime, this was an old roster. And LeBron was, doing his weird tweeting thing, like, doubt us, whatever. But the problem when your roster is that old is because there's an 82-game season. Even if you have a spectacular night, one night, and you have back-to-back days, it's just not going to, the endurance for the team isn't there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. The endurance, and no matter how good these guys were, no matter how much of a veteran these guys are, there's no endurance because it's getting to the end of their time, and it's just, it's a long season. It's a really long season.
Yeah, it is. It's a marathon in every way, shape, and form. And the Lakers, as a roster, tried to treat it like a sprint that they could kind of flip on and off when they needed to sprint. But because they're running a marathon and they're so old, they lose the ability to sprint by mile 19. We're at mile 26.1 right now, and the Lakers are limping to the finish line. So, yeah.
And LeBron James is still great. Don't get me wrong. I make fun of him all the time because I think he's a somewhat weird individual online. But his posts are weird. You cannot deny that.
You can't deny the fact that he's the one running his social media accounts. There's no way it's another person.
No, which is, great in a lot of senses. Because we talk about Tom Brady's PR team because they're really good at social media, but we're pretty sure it's not Tom Brady. We know it's LeBron James.
It's definitely LeBron James.
It's so LeBron James, and it's funny.
There's too many emojis and too many weird hashtags for it to be anyone else.
Oh, it's fantastic. But, yeah, he's great. There's no denying that. Scoring title, fantastic, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest. But he's getting too old to carry a team on his back by himself.
I know.
It gets to a point where he can no longer do that.
I know. I know.
And that just happens. That's father time. One last thing here before we wrap up with future fantasies. The Chicago Bulls clinched their playoff berth. Not because they won, unfortunately. They lost to the Bucks 127-106, but because Cleveland lost to Orlando. I'm just so happy to see him back. I don't think they're going to do anything special in the playoffs, but it warms my heart to see this team back.
How's your new Bulls jersey?
Oh, I love it. Oh, it's so nice. Oh, I haven't showed it to you yet. Well, it's getting to the 90s, so I'll probably wear it one of these times. But I love this team.
Yeah.
Are they going to win a title? No, but are they going to be out in the first round? Man, if we see Brooklyn, please no. But
Brooklyn's 8 seed right now.
Yeah.
Where's Chicago at?
Actually, no, that was an older mock. We're a 5 seed.
So you if Brooklyn were to, because Brooklyn's pretty low right now.
Yeah, so it probably wouldn't work out that way.
If you ran into them in the second round, Brooklyn would have to beat probably the 1 or 2 seed initially. So. Yeah,
that's true. But regardless, I'm just happy to see them back. It's been a while since they've been here.
Now I get to wallow in the pain you were wallowing in for the last few years.
Yeah, no kidding, dude. I had to sit here and cry at Jim Boylan, and you just had to, oh no, LeBron didn't score 40 tonight. Whatever will I do? I kid.
All right. Tonight's future fantasy is a simple one. Gonna need Nicole to get out of my keister about my LA Lakers.
Oh, I will never. I can't.
I know, and the issue is I've been friends with you for so long, so I'm kind of stuck with you for life now.
Uh-huh.
So, like, if we do, like, a podcast or something post-grad, which more than likely I feel like we will, because we've been doing this for 4 years, and I can't imagine my life without it. My future fantasy is that you'll get out of my keister, and I know that is a
fantasy.
That is going to stay a fantasy longer than women getting paid the same amount of money men will in college or in professional basketball.
Oh, you just made it serious. But yes, you were
I'm correct. That's my future fantasy for the week. Nicole, get out of my keister.
My future fantasy is that... Actually, no. It's not really a fantasy. It is the future. No.
That's going to do it for this week on The Future is Female. For more of Nicole roasting the crap out of my Lakers and myself, tune in next week on The Future is Female.